Give me a second here. Get us started. Alright, so today I am going to remap my APC 40. I'm switching my composition from Resolume 6 to the newer Resolume Arena. When it first came out, I had some troubles with the glitching and crashing during the first show I tried to use, so I put it off for a while, but I'm hoping that now everything's a lot better. There's definitely some new features in there that I want to utilize. So it's actually really easy for my decks and everything to switch over. All these just transferred right over. I just need to reorganize them again. But the mapping, not so much always. Sometimes there's some little kinks in how the Midi transfers over, so it's definitely better for me to just start from scratch and go from there. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, want me to go over anything, just hit me up in the chat. I'm definitely streaming to Twitter too. Twitch, twitch.tv/lixmusic. It's probably going to be the best way to reach me for the chat. I've got that and the restream chat pulled up. I'm not sure if the restream chat's going to redistribute or not. So if you're following me on Facebook, definitely recommend hopping over to twitch.tv/lixmusic. And I'm just going to try to be as transparent about this process as I go. Haven't ever done a tutorial or anything like that, so it's going to be a little different, just kind of sitting here talking to myself. So definitely feel free to hop into that chat and shoot some questions my way. All right. So this is basically a brand new composition right here. Just gonna start off by checking through some of the preferences real fast, make sure everything's good. There shouldn't be much in here to change, nothing really of concern. Audio. Now, if you ever want to do some audio reactive work, this is where you'll find your interface. You can either go from so right now I'm using an interface here. It's got two inputs. It's mine right there, main out 1 and 2. You do have to set the output from your audio interface if you want to do any kind of input from it. So you can't just have the audio come out of your computer if you want to do an input. It all has to be through the same box. So have it set up here just in case I do want to go over some audio reactive stuff a little bit later. That's my audio reactive input there. And it's also important to come down here and select which channel you want the audio to come in from. So since I have 2, you can choose input 1 and 2, or you can choose one of the individual channels there. It's a gain knob for how harsh the audio is coming in. Usually have it set pretty high there. Should be good for that screen there. Let's see. This is where your plugin directory is for any FFGLs. That's like a VST for visual inputs, visual sources. Might go over that in another video later. Midi. This is super important for the APC 40. It's actually the whole reason I got it. So usually when you pull it up, it comes up as alternate Ableton Live mode. Actually, before, let me change this. All right. For some reason. Okay, it's not showing my preferences on the screen there, unfortunately. But if you do go into Arena preferences right down here. Uh, big list of options. And there's going to be a tab that says Midi. In that, I have my Midi controller connected under the Midi tab, and there's an APC40 Mach 2. I want my Midi input and output selected, and usually it comes up as alternate Ableton Live mode, which is what they say is recommended. But I really want to get some more functionality out of this controller, so I'm choosing generic mode right there. And I'll tell you why. So the mode they recommend has only 8 knobs down here and 8 buttons for like 16 different kinds of input there. But in generic mode, I can select across these banks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and across all of those banks, it's going to change the 8 knobs and the 8 buttons for each bank. So it brings it up to 64 knobs and 64 buttons, which is absolutely incredible for control and getting the most out of a small controller. So I'm going to get right into doing some mapping here. Alright. Control-Shift-M will launch you into MIDI mapping mode. Always good to know some shortcuts, save you tons of time. And on the controller, I like using the faders, most of the faders for opacity sliders for each individual layer lane. So I'm going to go ahead and select this right here. That is the opacity layer for 1. Just grab the knob, slide that up. Make sure it registers. Make sure that did register. 2, same thing. And 3, I'm not sure if it's going. There we go. Alright, so you'll see some numbers pop up right there when it does register. Right over there. Telling you that it's picking up on some MIDI data. So like I said, fader 2, fader 3 there. That's going to be pretty important. Right up top here is the master opacity fader. Going to do the same thing on the master slider here. Right here is our tap tempo. I'm going to go ahead and do the tap tempo button on the APC40. That's going to allow me to tap in a beat and get all the visuals in sync. I'm using the nudge buttons for double and a half of the tap tempo. So if I tap it in and I counted it double time or half time, I can quickly just hit that. This is the BPM that you can adjust. I like putting it on this knob here. So then if I just need to tap it up and down a little bit, I can certainly do that. Now with a lot of the MIDI mappings right down here, you're going to have some extra options that you can choose. It's going to tell you the channel and the command control, as well as some modes here. I believe it's fake relative for any like infinity knobs, ones that don't have an ending point. They just keep turning and turning and turning. Let's see. Range for BPM, really do want down to 20, and never really need to go too much faster than, let's see, about 256. It's about double time for house. Step size, I want the step size to be like 1 BPM. So that means that every time I twist the knob one click, it's going to go 1 BPM there. As you can see, right over there, if I twist the knob, it just goes up and down. 1, really easy to just kind of dial it in or adjust on the fly. All right, let's get back to MIDI mapping. These are the transition sliders. I like putting that right next to like using the slider that's right next to the master. Just nice and easy. And really my transition time for everything I want to be the same. It's not going to be important for me to ever have a transition time that's different from my layers, so I just map it all to one singular knob there, or one singular fader. Pretty decent on that. I'm going to map some forward, backward, and pause buttons. So that's going to be backward play, pause, and forward. And just because of how this controller is laid out, it's pretty easy for me to use the top 3 buttons right there. And obviously left is going to be backwards, right is going to be forward, and this one's just going to be pause right there in the middle. Just one of the easier layout transitions. Makes the most sense. So let's see. Something like that. See, I can go backwards, forwards, or I could pause it all together. What else is I gonna do? All right, some blend modes. So blend modes. Usually use the record button on each of the layers for what kind of blend I want to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up there for layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. And in the settings for that, you can either have it when you select it, it'll do next item, and I'll just move on down the list, but there's a lot of these that I just don't use, don't really utilize much. So there are some that I do use all the time. So I'm just going to map the one, like the 5 that I use most frequently. I think that'll be most beneficial. So start here with that. And that is the 50 add. And right back on top of there, I'm going to right click and create controller shortcut. That's going to pull up another option for me. So now I can stack MIDI mappings on the same button. And as you press the button and cycle through, it'll change through your selected settings for that MIDI button. So I'm going to do 50 add, 50 distance, another shortcut. Distance. Add. Lighten. Subtract. I'll start there. And in layer 2, same idea. 50 add. Distance. Lighten. Mask. And 50 subtract. On to layer 3. Same concept. 50 add. Distance. Lighten. Mask. And subtract. So now on the respective layers, if I tap the button, you're going to see it cycles through. Ooh. It's working a little different. on the past version, I believe it allowed me to stack those on top of each other. I'm not sure if it's going to work in this one. Come back to that later. All right. This is your composition layer right down here. You've got your regular layer for each defined layer. It changes for whichever one you're selected. Then you have your clip folder. I like keeping my layer and the composition in the same pocket. Usually only have to mess with one of those at a time. Clips, nice to have its own little pocket, always available to see what's going on. It has all the information for any individual clips that you have selected. Under the composition, I'm going to start adding some effects here. In the top right up here, you can see I have my remaining folders. You've got your sources. These are source generators that you can create clips out of. My composition folder with past compositions that I've made. The effects folder where you have all your effects that can modify clips, and files for your file browser. So I'm going to go up to effects, and one really important thing to put on the composition folder is a brightness and contrast. And I don't really need to have this mapped to my controller so much, but it is really handy to have available. I am going to just show you kind of what it does. Turn it up, brightness, obviously. Turn it down, make it darker. Same with contrast. You can boost the colors a little bit or wash them out. And this is really important for video walls. Video walls can be very, very bright. And sometimes you might start around sunset and move into the night. And maybe the processor isn't in a good spot. So it's nice to have some just quick availability of adjusting the overall brightness at any point during your show. But as you could tell, it's definitely always better to adjust the brightness on the video processor, because as you start to boost this up, you'll really start to wash out the colors. You can pull the contrast back a little bit to help out, but yeah, definitely adjust on the wall first. Use this for more minor increments. Alright, I do want to put some strobes onto my controller. So the way I do strobes, nice. So I like having 4 different strobe speeds. Got like a slow, a medium, a fast, and an extra fast. Turn that off. That's the bypass. So you can kind of see what strobe is doing there. You have an opacity layer. If you don't want it to go over the whole clip, you can have it blend out a little bit. And that's the frequency. I'm not going to adjust it because I've already got it set where I like. But as you can see, that one's a lot faster. You can set individual colors of the strobe. Go down there. Let me go ahead and get this mapped out a little bit. All right. So on the strobe, really just mapping the bypass button. And I'm going to map it to my first 4 clip stop buttons right here for 2 reasons. One, they're kind of spread out, so I'm not going to mash over 2 of them at the same time. They're a little recessed as well, so I won't accidentally hit them if I'm trying to hit one of my layers there. Make sure I got that one to first one, second, third, and fourth. So I do believe it's piano, and it's just like a piano. When you press it, it's on. Take your finger off, it stops. Some would call it a gate. So I just need to go in and invert that piano. Boom. And do an invert on that piano. So now, when I hold it, strobe goes. If I stop, strobe stops. I'm going to repeat that process for the other 3. Once again, that's mode, toggle, piano, invert, piano, invert, strobe 4, piano, invert. Now we got some strobe action. All right. Now with all effects, right here next to the bypass, there is a preset button. You can either choose to find presets that are already set for some of the effects, there aren't many, or you can save your own presets. So if you find some settings here that you really enjoy, let's go and hit that save, give it a name. I'll pop up right over here. Really handy. All right, drop those down. Now, I like having a white strobe, but I also like having a black, like a fade. So I'm going to go ahead and pull down 4 more of these. And I'm going to do the same process, except right here where the color is, I'm just going to drop all those to black. Control-Shift-M for the Midi mapping. All right, now I'm going to put the strobes right here next to it as well. That is strobe 1. 2, 3, and 4. Once again, you can come in here to mode, piano, invert. Now, the MIDI out velocity right down here, that is the data that's being sent back to the MIDI controller. So that's for your lighting response, essentially. So it took me a long time to figure out that on velocity means whatever the button is doing when you press it and turn it on. Then the reverse is when your setting goes off, whatever the button response is for it being off, whatever color it displays there. Now for these ones, the strobes, I really just like keeping them on all the time, just so they're really easy to find in a dark setting. Piano, invert, off, on, on. Piano, invert. So acts the same way as the white strobe, but it's not nearly as bright and blinding, so sometimes that white strobe can get really intense, especially if you're in the front row of a video wall, and sometimes to just build some energy during a set, like switching over to the black, just to really add a little extra flair for those build-ups and drops without having to mess everybody's eyes up with the blinding light of the sun. Right. I do want to go up here and set a way for me to jump between my layers. So I select layer 1 there, and I just use the numbered pads for each lane. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 1 there, 2 on the second, 3 on the third, and 4 on the fourth. Make sure settings within are good. On, you got the velocity on. Off is off, so I think that's going to be good there. And as you can see, it switches to the lane, whatever layer I select. That's going to be really helpful later when I start making some predefined presets for each individual layer. So I can just quickly jump between them. Okay. Now under layer, I'm going to start adding some layer effects. So that was my composition. I'll get back to some more overall composition effects here in just a little bit. I'm going to hop over to layer, and under layer 1, pull up a clip so you can see what's going on here. Zoom. You got effects for just your layer, your scale. You can bring it up and down. You can rotate your image. and you can just slide it over. A lot of that, at least for composition wise, is better done in the clip view for each individual clip, but if you have to adjust something for an entire layer, it's awfully good to know. Now, one really important thing I like about each individual layer effect is the colorizer. Boom. So you can tell right there, the colorizer is going to allow me to completely change the color of each individual layer at will. So I like setting up different colors on each layer and doing complementary mixes with that. Keep grays. That's going to allow some of the grays to come in. But as you can see, it kind of starts to get a little distorted, a little faded out, a little glitched out. Or you can invert that. I don't really mess with that too much. Anytime there's an arrow, that just allows for more settings. You can set the tolerance, how much it's going to let through, and the contrast. Might be cool for an effect later. But for now, I'm not messing with keep grays. Set the overall contrast of the color. Usually keep it right around 20 though. Nice balance of blacks and color there. Now, under color. Right here is palette. And bringing palette up, you can set some predefined color values. And I think these are actually all the ones I already want in here. These are a lot of colors that are consistently used in concert lighting. You got like a red, green, yellow, not gray so much, blue, pink, cyan, and a white. And the same way as effects, here is the preset spot right there. You can save any kind of color palette that you make. So if you find a set of color combinations that you really enjoy, you can save that in there and pull it up later. It's really handy, really good to know. Let's see if anybody's on Facebook. All right. Now, like I said, I do want to have this defined for my individual layer. I'm going to do a couple things to give me some control over that so I can pull it up whenever I want. Right now, I do have right here layer 1 selected. You could tell right there. And I'm going to map it on and off. So that's that bypass button again. And over here on the right side, I'm going to start using these knobs and buttons right here. And this button is going to be my off and on. So bypass that right there. Keep it at toggle because toggle is just a button that like you press it once, it stays recessed. You press it again and it pops out. So that's the idea I'm going for there. And once again, right down here, we have the on and off status settings. So when the effect is on, I do want it to have a color, and when it's off, I do not. Make sure that is how I want it to be. Oh yeah, forgot there's something a little finicky about this controller. Sometimes you have to do double presses with that. That's really minor inconvenience, but Alright, so I'm actually going to switch those values there because when it's on, the light is not. So I'm just going to hop back in there, switch that real fast. So once again, status, off, but instead of off, I am going to have it be on. On, I'm going to switch that to off. See if that fixes it. I think the double clicks are kind of throwing that off a little bit, but one more really important thing to do down here with this is slide black to the back, red, green, yellow, blue, pink, cyan. Oh, I do want to add an orange. Go down here, select a good orange. Something kind of like that. And then you could take that box right here, the color you just made, and you could just drag it right into your square. Now I do want to map all these color buttons here to a knob so I can just quickly adjust them. So I'm going to Midi shift, and I'm going to go ahead and select that first color pocket there and just give my knob a little twist and do the same on all the other colors. I think I have to change the mode in just a second. Yeah, actually, there we go. So now I could just take this knob, turn it, and it's quickly going to change between my colors on the fly. So that's really helpful. Boom. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save. Bam. Now I'm going to hop over to layer 2, do the same thing over here with that one. Alright, once again in layer 2. Go ahead and take the 2020 color I just made, drop that down into here, and map it the same way. So it's important to have layer 2 selected when I go to do this, because it does change this bank of knobs and buttons here. So now they're indicating something totally different than what I had set for layer 1. So I'm going to use the same spots for layer 2 for the mapping. So right here again, that is the bypass to turn it on and off. And right down here on the color, I'm going to use the same knob, but it's getting a different message than it was at first. So I'll still be able to use them independently of each other. So I could set a layer up in each lane and not have them both change. Zoom. So now, perfect. Turn it on, same story. Can just swipe right on through them. So, for instance, that one's there, but I could press this one and switch back to layer 1, and Ooh. Make sure that actually switched over. It's still reading channel 1. I think if I do, that's what it is. Okay. So these buttons here switch between the banks. Gotta go back and change that up real fast. So as you can see right over here, it's changing when I hit that in generic mode. So now I'm just gonna go remap that again for layer 2. And if you change the Midi value, it overwrites the previous one, so I just gotta select and twist the knob. Boom. Try this again. Alright. Turn the color on. Same process. Switch right through those. But if I hop over to layer 1 here, because tell now it's got its own independent color. And so that's really helpful for mixing complementary colors, giving some really different looks, and having a coordinated show with your lighting operations there. And that's really the big reason I have some of these brighter colors here, because when you've got beams and pars and everything that are replicating these colors on stage, it just looks really good to have everything complementing each other and working cohesively. So alright, gonna do same thing one more time for layer 3. Select layer 3 to get my set of knobs and buttons over here to the right to change. And press 3 here to bring up layer 3 and my composition. Once again, bring in my color rise, and I'll map it the same way. Bypass on and off, and my colors to knob 1. Boom. Done. Layer 3. Turn it on. Change between it. Awesome. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and hop back to layers for the composition. And I do love working with some mirrors. So let's get a mirror in here. All right. So mirrors are really fun, really easy to work with. Pull them in and out, and just like a mirror, replicates. What I use a lot is 50-50. Which does this really nice, completely synchronized setting. And a fun little tool here is the in and out, which allows you to pull that central point completely in or out. You can also flip the axes, get some different looks with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and map some of these. I like putting it on 7 and keep 7 dedicated for my mirrors. Same old song and dance. The top one here is going to turn it on and off. And the in and out here, I actually like mapping to the crossfader. Makes for some fun rhythmic playing during a set, making it weave in and out. I also do like having control of the X and Y. So I just put those right next to each other there. That should be good for now. All right. So now you can see that's the crossfader right there. It's really nice to be able to either adjust and place it exactly where you want, give some movement during your set, or you can kind of do some like crossfader taps like a DJ would with the crossfader. So that's kind of fun. And the good thing about that being on the composition layer is that anytime I switch to a different layer, it still affects all of them. And really when you're working with mirrors, I mean, that's kind of ideal. Kind of keeps everything moving in sync. Not going to get too wild with it and have anything get really out of frame or have any really nasty compositions. So I like working with that. Do want to put a mirror quad up here as well. Just a different look. It's nice to stack them sometimes. All right. Still on layer 7. And this one's a little bit more simple. Bypass, layer 7. I'm going to do the row below it. That's going to be my on and off. And same thing, X and Y right next to each other. Boom, turn that off. So now click, click, on and off. And I can just change orientation like that. Changes the X and Y right there. And that's a really cool effect you can get when you stack them on top of each other. So I got the mirror in the top row feeding into the quad right below it. It becomes really easy to make some really cool effects. All right. What else do I want to talk about? So layer 4 I'm probably going to end up using for some effects. You could put effects, you could just drop them right in here and it'll affect the clips below it. Layer 5 I like using for like artist logos. And I'm going to go ahead and map that fader to fader 5. See if I can pull in the logo real fast. How about some backspin? So transparent PNGs are absolutely the way to go. Allows for a transparent background, as you can see there. You're not going to be stuck with a black box or a white box behind it. Just makes your life incredibly easy. So much easier. You got a scale right here. You can adjust the size, rotation, anchor point, the whole 9. Like I said before, you can drop these menus down here, and you can also animate. You can do this with a lot of the transform effects. So for example, maybe I want this to kind of like pulse in and out between like 110 and 150. Hop in here, and I'm going to want that to go to the BPM as well. So type in 110 for my percent on the left, do 150 for my percent on the right. Bam. But I don't want it to snap back, so right down here we have some timeline controls. You can reverse it, pause it, move it forward. Right here is the action that it does when it completes. So you can either have a loop, starts back from the beginning, bounce, which is what I'm going for, so it's just going to pulse. When it gets to the end, it's going to play it backwards. You also have random for random playback across your scale, or play once and hold, so it's just going to play it out to its maximum point and keep it there. You can also have restart or continue. Beats. So that's how long it takes to finish its cycle. If I half it, speeds up. Double time, etc. right there. So that's super good to know. And like I said that to BPM, so then when I'm playing along, and it's always going to move in time with the music as long as I've got the rhythm down. So that's really nice. One important thing to know about working with the timeline of clips and everything is you can also set an envelope, which is pretty cool. So under envelope, you'll see that right here is the action that it's doing. So that's mimicking the scale setting right here. So as you can see, when it gets to the end, it bounces back both ways. So maybe I don't want it to move so linearly there. You can select one of these points, make it a little bit wider, and you can affect the curve. So for example, let's do a drastic curve. You can do like an elastic in and out. So now when it comes across this, it's going to change how your visual reacts. Do something more subtle, like a sine. Maybe a quadratic end, so just kind of creeps up towards the end and bounces back. Get a nice dramatic pulse. You can also just click in here and add your own points and really take control over your animations, over your parameters. Really set them, adjust them however you want to. Double clicking eliminates a keyframe is handy. Did see, what was it? Curious what animation settings is. Have to look into that one a little bit. That's new for this version. All right. Got my strobe, white and black. Got my mirrors, quad and regular. Got my colorizer set for the individual lanes. Start working with some Master Effects here. Boom. Something more like that. Edge detection is a fun one that I like to use. So I'm going to drop that down into my composition layer because I want that to affect all the layers when I use it. And really cool thing up here is the dashboard, so you can map your parameters to these knobs, and then I'm going to MIDI map these knobs to my top set of knobs up here for the effects that I want to affect the whole composition and have readily available, easy to use. So I'm going to put this one at 7. Let me check the multiplier in the mode. Multiplier is about right where it was. Double right clicking will take it back to the setting that the effect is built in. So if you get out of whack and you just want it to go back to the setting that it starts with, double click that. I think use color is new. That's fun. What if I pull up my palette? Ooh, I'll set that to my strobe color. Actually, I need to do that too. Before I come back to that, I think that's the mode I like. Yep. Okay. So really for effect like this, I just want it to set the opacity knob. It's the only thing that I'm actually going to be adjusting at any point. So I can just grab the opacity and just drag that right up to number 7, and now it's going to be linked right there. So I can adjust that on the fly. And once again, I'm going to hop into MIDI mapping mode, grab that, and just twist my 7th knob up top. And now I have control over that. It's always right there within reach. You can dial the range down if you want to make it faster to adjust. You make sure that's set to, I think fake relative is the one I like. So I do want it to move a little bit faster than that. So right in here, I'm going to bring those steps down a little bit. I'm thinking maybe more like 10. I said that, it automatically affects the step size. Bam. Now that's moving a little too fast, so maybe more like 20. Yeah, that's much better. A lot more control over how I want to dial that in. Now I do want a quick reset for any of my effects, so right here under opacity, let me do this. Yeah, right here under opacity. I'm gonna right click, create a controller shortcut. I'm gonna do mode as a absolute, and I just want my value to be 0. Actually, I think it's toggle that I'm looking for. Button. Yeah. You can do button and value and set that to 0. Once again, that's my, do my pan there. Boom. So now anytime I press that, it's going to reset that knob to 0. And I'm going to set that for all my master effects, so when I'm playing along and I just want to go back to my regular mode, whatever effect I'm using, just press that and it launches it right back. Sometimes get lost in the knobs when I'm in the middle of the show, and it's really nice to have a button that I can just quickly reset instead of having to run my hands across and change all my settings at the same time. Boom, boom. I did want to hop back into the strobes here for a second, because I started doing something, I was just using white for a long time, but don't want black. I've already got a black strobe. What did I do? I added an orange. So let me go down here, make it orange again. Later on, I'm going to dial in a lot of these colors a lot better, but just for the sake of kind of expediting this video and not making it too dreadful, do that. And now I'm going to map this top right knob here to my palettes. So actually, do that. Let me save this as strobe 2020. Right down here, I should probably be able to, just grab strobe 2020 for that one. Color again, palette, strobe 2020. Color, palette, and preset strobe 2020. Now I want that palette knob to be number 8. And I think you should be able to stack effects on top of each other, so one knob can do multiple effects, but I am just using this knob to control the same effect of all 4 speeds at the same time. Bam. I need to map that knob. Color, map it here. See how it's working out. Boom. So now I can change the color of the strobe on the fly, and that's really cool. That's a lot of fun. I've got a chaser plugin that allows me to map out our panels and do some chasing effects between the panels, different patterns and everything. And having some colored strobes there really makes that pop. Probably getting that into that different video. Not sure if I'll make it to it in this one. Yeah, that's fun. Now I do like keeping white all the way to the right because white's the most important for the strobe, so just launch that all the way over there to the right and know that I'm on white. But I could pull it back and choose whatever color I want. Now maybe I'll be able to map a toggle button for white, so anytime I hit that pan that I set for the reset, it'll just launch it back to white. So I'm going to create a controller shortcut on top of the white. Hit that button again. Mode white. Sounds right. And repeat the process down here. Create a controller shortcut. Pan again. White. Boom, white. And should be one more right there. Pan and white. Alright. So now I'm over here on green. But if I press that, goes back to white. So that's handy. Okay. Well, I think I am going to go and call it there for today. Got to go talk to somebody. So thank you for tuning in. If you stopped in and stuck around for the process, I know it's not super exciting, but it is pretty cool to see how everything works and is laid out. I'll definitely do another one of these here in a week. Now that I've kind of struggled through the process a little bit, got my streaming set up and ready to go, and I'll dive in a little bit deeper next week. I'm gonna pull out the Chaser app, a really cool app that I got. Allows me to map out LED panels and create movements between all the panels, and utilize that a lot in shows now. So that's really fun, and show you how that works. Also work on some audio reactive settings next time probably, and definitely finish up mapping out this controller. Say I'm probably about halfway there. Just gotta dial some things in, add a couple more master composition effects there, and fill in with anything that I forgot so far this time. So once again, thanks for stopping in, and I'll do this again soon. Talk to you later.